Our friend is back. He's been gone for a minute. He is back. One of the smartest white men on this side of heaven, Bill Lockwood. And Bill is a writer, radio host of At American Liberty. Radio host at American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. Teacher in Wichita Falls, Texas. Preacher at Our Park Church of Christ. And I want to talk to Bill about a few things. Bill, welcome back.
Thank you, Jesse. Great to be back with you today.
It's been a minute.
I know it has been, hasn't it? Kind of missed each other last time.
I know, man. Well, I'm glad you're back. The last time we had you on was August for Men's History Month. So I'm glad you're back.
Oh, boy.
And that's a while.
That's too long, too gone.
That's right. And so the world, especially this country, is a mess right now.
Yeah, it is. It is a mess, and America is leading the way in mess making.
I know. Currently, there are non-violent participants of the January 6th event that's being detained in the D.C. Department of Correction. So our citizens of America are being detained for nonviolent. They haven't done anything wrong, and they are being held. How can that happen in America?
You know what? Because Washington, D.C. is really a microcosm of a communist country. And that's what's coming to all of us. If we don't stand up and start doing something, or at least our representatives, you know what, this is an atrocity. It is absolutely horrific what's happening with the J6ers. About 400 or more of them have been incarcerated, and most of them had not even been charged with anything, and the most serious crimes have been simply trespassing. But you think about it, it's all theater by the liberal elite in Washington, D.C. They acted like it was an insurrection. It was not an insurrection. There were no arms. There was not one weapon that was confiscated off of any of the persons who entered the Capitol. I'm not actually, and I'm not, of course, endorsing entering the Capitol and doing what they did. Nevertheless, let's not call it an insurrection. An insurrection would be more like burning down police stations like the BLM and Antifa riots did last year in different cities, such as in Portland and Minneapolis and so forth. That would be an insurrection. But those people, of course, never faced incarceration, and then they were let out of prison by our vice president and president, and they had deferred charges. But these individuals, and there's some of them on videotape, simply walking in, they were let in by Capitol Police. They walked into the building, and of course, most of the people there that were there at the J6 rally were peaceful protesters, had nothing to do with going into the Capitol at all. Some of them have simply entered into the Capitol, such as one man who entered into the Capitol. His name is Nathan DeGrave. He entered into the Capitol simply for a few moments, taking pictures. He was taking videos. He was later arrested. He's been detained ever since that particular date. All these months, he has had no representation. They've had no visitation. They've had atrocities in the jail. They've had raw sewage pouring out into some of the cells. They've had little or no medical treatment. They've had beatings for people trying to open up and have Bible studies in there. They've had no visitations, and the congressmen can't even get in. This looks more like Hanoi Hilton than it does the United States of America. And that's what's coming to all of us. These are political prisoners, is what it is. And I want to say this, Jesse, that, you know, America is a big country. And people say, well, I don't feel that kind of thing right here at my home in Wichita Falls, or at home where you live in California or Arizona. You know, I don't feel that. But, you know, that's because it's a big country and it takes a long time to work itself through the country. But if that's a microcosm of what this is coming to be, we are in serious, serious trouble. They have violated the government is violating the Sixth Amendment. That is, they haven't had no speedy trial. That's the Sixth Amendment, to give them a speedy trial. The Eighth Amendment is violated. That is, they've had cruel and unusual punishment. They've had little or no medical treatment. One man trying to organize a Bible study was beaten savagely, broke his eye socket by some of the correctional officers. No medical treatment of it, simply trying to organize a Bible study. You know what? I worked in juvenile detention here in Wichita Falls for a long time, and those juveniles, it was mandatory that they would see a judge within 3 days after being incarcerated. But these J6 prisoners have had no charges. They've had no seeing of the judges. We've only heard what's going on. There's a letter that's come out, but a couple of them telling what's going on. They've had congressmen try to go in. They usher them out. They won't even let them in. So, see, we are living, this is a common country.
Why can't the congressmen get in? I mean, they're congressmen. Why can't they get in?
Because Joe Biden is a dictator. That's why. We live under a dictatorship, and the people just don't realize it yet. This is a dictatorship. That's what's happening.
Are these Republican congressmen who are trying to get in?
Yes, they are. Louis Gohmert was one of them. Matt Gaetz was another one. There was a couple more that were there. They tried to get in. They ushered them out. They entered into the foyer of it. Then they ushered them out. Then they went in, shut the doors. That was on video. They shut the doors, and nothing's being said about them. These individuals, one of the things about our Constitution, and people don't realize this, that God has given us certain rights, and the Bill of Rights is not the government granting us rights, but it is to say what the government may not do because of what our forefathers experienced in the old country in the old England. So what's happening with the Bill of Rights is simply they said, there will be no incarceration without having a speedy trial. There will be no incarceration without having the charges that are offered against them. They had no charges. Many of them, trespassing is the largest charge against them. Trespassing. And yet they are in jail and are being treated. Many of them losing weight. They have malnutrition. They have lacking medical treatment. They've been confined to 22 to 23 hours per day. They live in a 120-foot cell. And that's all. And then they've tried to organize Bible studies to get beaten by the correctional officers. They're called white supremacists, which is a lie. But that's because the Joe Biden administration is a dictatorship, and he hasn't simply gotten to you yet.
And so I want the people to know that we're talking about the people, American citizens who was at the rally there January 6th in Washington, D.C. We're not talking about Allah Akbar people in Guantanamo Bay. They were treated.
We treated them greatly. We treated them wonderfully.
Right.
If we waterboarded them, boy, I tell you what, the whole country was upset, and we put them back home, and we gave them exercise treatments, and we gave them great nutrition. We had the liberals all interested, make sure that no. This is how they're treating people on the conservative side of the aisle. This is how they're doing it.
So what is the purpose of having a Republican Party if they're no good? Because they have not been able to stop anything this year that the Democrats have done. And in some cases, they participate in the destruction. Why have a Republican Party? Why should we vote Republican?
That's a good point. That's a good point, Jess. You know what? I've heard the Republicans kind of crying about this and wringing their hands and saying this is bad. And by the way, I will say this, Elizabeth Warren came out and said something as well as Dick Durbin on the other side of the aisle about the maltreatment that is going on there, but nothing seems to be being done about it because this is the problem. Our congressmen and women, they're crying out for us to, if they can't do anything, what are we going to do about it? If they can't do anything in Washington, D.C., if your congressman and senator cannot do anything about this violation of the Bill of Rights for the J6ers, then what are we going to do? What they want us to march on Washington? That we see what they're actually, as a matter of fact, most of it is what happened there. For example, the officer that died the day later at home, Brian Sicknick, they laid him in state in the Capitol Rotunda because they said he was killed by a fire extinguisher. That was a lie, and they knew it was a lie. They put 26,000 troops around Washington, D.C. That was all theater, as if we have some mass insurrection going on in our country. They're targeting you, and they're targeting me for being people who are not only Trump supporters, but conservatives who don't want to go into a global socialist government that Biden is taking us into right now as quickly as I'm saying it.
That's amazing. So they've been in jail since January of this year. Am I right?
That's right. Not all of them. Some of them, one man, matter of fact, went in. This is an interesting story. One man went into the Capitol. He went in through open doors. They didn't, now I'm not saying some of them didn't break windows. Some of them did do that. That was wrong to do. And of course, I don't endorse that. But some of them walked into the Capitol through open doors, and they were let in by the Capitol Police. One man was in for a total of 9 minutes. He took a few pictures. He didn't destroy anything. He didn't threaten anybody. He walked out, he went home, and in May 28th, he was arrested at his home by the FBI for espionage and trying to overthrow the government, that kind of thing. Now, it's all theater is what it is. And they're telling you a message: shut your mouth, don't say anything. And if you say too much on this, of course, YouTube takes you off and everybody shuts you down if you say what you think you ought to say on certain things.
Where is, so I haven't seen this in the media anywhere. I don't hear these people, family members in the media complain about it either. Why isn't there exposure of what's happening to those guys in jail right now? Why don't we hear it everywhere? If Black Lives Matter was arrested, it'd be all over the news all day.
Yeah. Because our country is basically gone. Even Fox News, for example, used to have such great scholars on there, such as Robert Spencer, talking about Islam and the dangers of Islam in our country. Pamela Geller on there about Islam. You don't hear any talk about that at all anymore, period, about Islam on Fox News. And why? Well, your guess is as good as mine, but you know very well they have marching orders, and the same thing is the case here. There are certain things that you cannot talk about, or they're going to, I suppose the network's going to be all over you. So even Fox News has gone that direction. This is why people are looking for alternative sites of media right here.
So what can we, the people, do in America about what's happening in our country? Because clearly the Republicans' representatives are not going to do anything. What can we do?
Well, I think that in Texas, for example, we have a great candidate, Alan West, who is, I think, running for governor. And people like that, for example, the border is wide open, as everybody knows, the border, and we've had over 1 million people come in, and they're still coming in big trains of people. But Alan West, he has at his disposal something like 25,000 troops, National Guard troops. He was going to put them on the border, stop that. But the deal that the Republicans are all about, such as what's going on right here in the state of Texas, and our own governor, Greg Abbott, and what they do is they say, well, we're going to go to court. We're going to take them to court. You know what? We're going to lose our country by the time the court decides anything.
Yeah. That's right.
And if the Supreme Court goes a different direction, then we'll say, well, we're going to go relitigate that at a different date. We don't have that much time. We need to stop what's going on now, and that's what Biden is counting on, and that's what Kamala Harris is counting on, that we're going to simply go to court, and then we'll have the courts that kind of decide one way or the other, might go shifting with the wind, and by the time we get any decisive ruling on anything, it's too late, because the country will have been flooded by illegals continually who have all the benefits and a lot more benefits than the J6ers in jail in Washington, D.C.
$450,000 per person the illegal aliens are getting. Did you hear about that?
That's right.
Yeah.
I did hear that they're getting, and they want to give them reparations because they had separated them during the Trump administration, separated families. So they're going to give them reparations. People need to recognize one thing, and that is this is war against freedom and war against America from the Biden administration. We're in a war, and it's not simply going to be, it's not going to be won, or it's not even going to be, the battlefield's not even in the litigations in the courts. The battlefield is whether or not we are strong enough as a state to say, you know what, we're done with this, and we're going to withdraw, and we're going to quit sending our monies to the federal coffers in Washington, D.C. We're going to quit sending our money over there completely. Yeah. But if people don't stand up and start doing that kind of thing at a state level and local level, there's counties right now in different states. In the state of Texas, there are counties that are saying we're going to protect our own county. Now, isn't that, with troops? Now, isn't that a sad scene
Yeah.
that we cannot even protect our own state, so we're going to have to protect our own county? So we're going to do it with arms. I mean, this is war against America, and what's happening in Washington D.C. with the J6ers is a lesson for all of us. It's a message that the Biden administration is sending out, saying, don't you stand up against the government in any way, shape, or form, even if a peaceful protest. You may not participate.
I heard this report about these people being locked away for so long. I had no idea. I heard it yesterday on the Hake report, and I was shocked to hear that because I hadn't heard about it in the media, and I knew that a lot of those guys were being investigated, but I didn't know they were locked up in jail and was not given representation and was treated so badly. Because I cannot imagine that happening in America, and now it's crazy to know that is happening. So you say that we should vote out these people and vote in other Republicans? Are you saying that?
Well, well, you know what? The Republicans have their serious issues as well.
Yeah.
And one of the serious issues is that they don't have any backbone to do what they need to do. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she has some backbone, and I hope that people like that will get going on it, on the J6 situation. But if our Congress women and men can't do anything, what am I going to do here in Wichita Falls?
Yeah.
So, but what we need to pay attention to, Jesse, is just because they have a R by their name does not mean they're conservative, does not mean they're constitutionalist. I know that a lot of people like being in Congress and they like getting in the political office and office holding. But you know what? These are times that really try men's souls, as was written 200 years ago. These are different times. These are not ordinary times. We are at war. Yep. Our own nation is at war with freedom lovers in America. Biden administration is selling us down the river as quickly as he possibly can. As a matter of fact, I hear so many people saying, what a disastrous presidency. No, he is wildly successful in what he wants to do. And he's counting on one thing, that we're not going to do anything except go to court and take him to court and say, well, you know what, that we need to sue the Biden administration. No, he's wildly successful in this. This is exactly what he wants to do.
Joe Biden, I haven't seen his medical records or anything like that, but he seems to be in the Alzheimer's development stage. He doesn't seem to. He remind me of my father when he was developing that, and he was like there, but he didn't know he was there, right? And Joe Biden doesn't seem to be the one that's making these decisions. He just seems to be looking at a teleprompter of something and reading it, and that's it. But somebody else, it seems as though these decisions are made by someone else.
You know what? This is exactly right. This is what people are calling the deep state. There's a reality that's going on. For example, think back during the Trump administration. Trump was in office a total of 19 minutes, and people were already calling for his head on a platter by impeachment. He went through 2 impeachment trials, and all of them were all conjured up lies by the FBI, the James Comeys of the world. They have never faced charges. They have never faced the federal prosecutors for violation of federal law. And so they completely hamstrung him during his entire presidency with one impeachment trial after the other. The deep state involves so much bureaucracy and bureaucrats that have been in place for many, many decades and has no connection with you, the voter, none whatsoever. As a matter of fact, Joe Biden wants to, what is he trying to do regarding the vaccine mandate, the vax mandates? He's wanting to run through OSHA. What's OSHA? Occupational Safety and Hazard Association, whatever the acronyms. Anyway, OSHA, with safety in the workplace. So what does that mean? That means it has nothing to do with Congress. Yeah. It has nothing to do with your elected representatives. They have an entire apparatus of government that has nothing to do with elected representatives. So they're taking the vax mandates through OSHA in order to get it done in the workplace, in spite of the fact that, for example, right here in the state of Texas, Governor Abbott thankfully said, by executive order, we'll not have no vaccine mandates here in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
That doesn't stop the people around us in Wichita Falls. For example, we have an executive director right here in the hospital who came out very lately and said, you know what, we have a team of lawyers and we're putting off the deadline from November 1 to December 1, which is coming up in 1 month. December 1, we're putting off the deadline. Does that sound like that they want to obey the executive order of our chief executive officer in the state? No. What they have is a team of lawyers that are looking for loopholes and ways to get around it, and they're going to try to push it and doing it anyway, in spite of the fact that they're losing so many good hospital staff right here in Wichita Falls.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. The liberalism has taken over.
Yeah, they're losing them. The fire department, police department staff, hospital staff in New York. This is overwhelming. And New York is already out of control when it comes to crime and all kind of mess. Things are only going to get worse there now that the officers are forced to quit their jobs and walk away. It's hard to believe that anyone, Democrat or liberal, would want that type of situation in their own city or state.
Right. That's the same thing in so many cities. Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Austin, Texas. Los Angeles. They lose our police officers. They lose emergency services. The emergency services, for example, has a vax mandate, and the vax mandate through the emergency services, the global services board. Well, they're set to lose a huge chunk. I've forgotten the percentage of them. Maybe about a third of their emergency services workers. What does that mean is going to happen? Already in Austin, Texas, they have instead of dialing 911, you have to dial 311 unless it's a life-threatening emergency. You dial 311 because they don't have it anymore. We're losing the ability to care for our own people because of the mandates coming out of the Biden administration. Plus, you think about the airmen, the servicemen, the pilots. Many of them have lost their jobs already.
Yeah,
that is in the Air Force, and there huge chunks of them are not taking the vaccines. So it's the mandates that's the real problem here.
Yeah, I saw a report this morning, or maybe last night, where today is the final day for the military. If people don't take the mandated vaccine today, they're going to have to leave the military.
Right, that's correct.
Amazing.
So, but
this OSHA thing is Occupational Safety and Health Administration.
And health. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I got rolling, and I've got the.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, safety and health. That's right.
So, Bill, why around the world we have so many other issues like illegal aliens coming in, all kind of stuff going on, crime? Why is the vaccine more important to these people than anything else?
Well, I don't know the exact answer to that, but I'll say this: that it's been the crowbar by which they were able to get Donald Trump out of office, because they were able to change immediately, unconstitutionally, the voting laws in the separate states. And so they had governors who were making executive orders, which was unconstitutional for them to do regarding the voting system.
Yeah.
And so, for example, in Pennsylvania and very many other states, the governor says we're going to have mail-in ballots. And so they were able to therefore circumvent the election process with the mandate. So not only so, but they're flexing political muscle. Joe Biden has absolutely zero authority to tell anybody what he needs to do regarding his health.
Yeah.
He might recommend something as a person, but he has zero authority to do it. And yet he comes up and says in front of the country that any business that employs, 100 or 1,000 or more employees, maybe it's 100.
100.
So they must have. Yeah. Well, where did that come from? So people kind of start falling in line because we have been conditioned, we've been brainwashed in our nation to goose step along with what's going on in Washington, D.C. And all of a sudden people are saying, well, we don't like what's going on in the Biden administration. He's becoming unpopular. We knew that before he went in. If you just paid attention to what's going on,
Yeah.
he told us what he was going to do.
Yeah.
The Democrat Party has told us what they're all about. We saw that with the Trump administration, that they're antagonistic to America freedom. So what are we surprised about? This is it blows my mind.
Also, crime is surging, and the media says people are dying of the virus, right? Um,
Yeah.
and it's just amazing to me that so-called leaders are causing this shortage. I wanted to ask, are you I'm surprised at I'm surprised at how out of control the blacks are. You know, you defund the cops, and the blacks goes out of control, and not all, of course, but most.
Right.
And they're walking into businesses and just robbing and stealing and killing in broad daylight with cameras, and they have no shame about it. Even though the Democrats are taking away the police and defunding them, I mean, shouldn't there be like a sense of self-control? Like, I'm not going to just go and steal just because I can do it. But are you surprised at how around the country the blacks are going out of control in the area of crime and disrespect and those types of things?
Well, it's very, very, very sad. You know what? America leads the world in one-parent homes.
Yeah.
But in America, the minority communities, the blacks and the Hispanics, lead the country in one-parent homes. They have no father in the home, and they're not learning any control. Plus, now we have this general hate against white people that is permeating the school systems. Not all, of course, as you say, not all, but permeates many of the public school systems.
Yeah.
And the university levels is completely eaten up with it. That if you're white, then you're wicked, and that you are a bad person of the devil if you're white. And so that of course is Marxism, and that's what's being taught and has been being taught at the university level for a long, long, long time. And it's just now beginning to percolate and boil out in the country. So consequently, what you have is the minority students, and of course some of them are the majorities as well, but they are completely disrespectful to authority.
Yeah.
They completely despise people that are whites. They don't want anything to do with them. I've been told that by black people, black children in schools. I hate you white people. I mean, that's just like.
Let me take a break, Bill. Can you hold for a minute?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, let me take a break. Bill Lockwood is here. One of the smartest white men on this side of heaven. American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. Bill, tell the folks how to listen to your radio show, get to your website, all the good things that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse.
Yeah.
Well, the radio show is American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. It's a YouTube channel also, and you can go there, subscribe, and it simply notifies you when there's a new show that's posted. American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. It comes out of Wichita Falls on the radio, and it's, of course, on Saturday. So that's on an FM channel 96.3 as well as AM 1290 in Wichita Falls, and that's on Saturdays at 11 o'clock. The website's named the same, American Liberty with Bill Lockwood.
Amazing. There is a Republican guy in Virginia running against a Democrat there, and they're having an election there today. I'm not excited about it at all because I heard the Republican guy is a Rhino. Should we continue to vote for Rhinos?
No, but you know what? I don't know about that particular individual. I've not followed him very carefully.
Yeah.
But I do know what's going on in Virginia, and but people are so. This is one of the problems, as you put it. People get so disgusted with the Democrats and the complete Marxism that they march to, and so and the communism and the socialism that they push down our throats. So people got tired of all that during the Clinton years and so forth. So then what do? Well, we went, let's get a Republican, and we get George W. Bush. I told people, I said, what do what are you doing?
Yeah.
He's not only a rhino, he's a globalist. He wants a global government. He wants no borders in America. That's exactly what we got going on right now. So that's why when Donald Trump got in office, who was a completely different character and a horse of a different color, people like George W. Bush hated him. They didn't like him either.
Yeah.
And the Liz Cheneys of the world despised him because they're globalists. They're all globalists, and they're all socialists, soft socialists. Most Republicans are soft socialists, and that's what they are.
That's amazing. So, this being the case, I don't know. We can't trust anyone to run our government then, because they say one thing while they're campaigning, but once they get in, they do another, and then we have to wait 4 years or so before we can vote them out. What are we to do? I'm just not sure what we should do.
Yeah. Well, you know what we could do? We could form a provisional government in whatever state, such as Texas or California, have a provisional government. Say, here's what we're going to do: is have a provisional government, and if it does not go our way, then we're going to withdraw from the union. This is, as I said, a war, and the secession is. We could nullify at a state level. We can nullify the laws. I would think would be the first option. So have a provisional government. Say we're having a provisional government, and they're going to recommend that we nullify the federal laws coming out of Washington, D.C., whether it be the vaccine mandates or whatever it may be. We nullify them, say they're unconstitutional, null and void, and have no effect in the state of Texas, period. We're not going to go to the Supreme Court. We're not going to go up there. We're just saying, no, not here in Texas. Just as the same thing you would say in your house. Say, no, not in the Peterson house. We're not going to do that. Yeah. Do that beginning. Nullify those laws. And if that doesn't work, then say, you know what? We're leaving the union. If we don't, we're not going to maintain our freedom. If Washington, D.C. is a picture of what we have coming across the nation, and the J6ers in jail, and I believe it is, then there's very little hope for us unless we stand up and start taking our freedom into our own hands.
And so who is going to lead that, though? We need somebody to stand up and lead the way for that to happen. What?
I think you should. I think you should.
Yeah. Or both of us.
Well, all right, both of us. And you know what? That's interesting. But here's an interesting thing. Remember, one of those men that were in the J6 group that entered into the Capitol, he said he went through open doors, and he went in for 9 minutes, taking a video, came out peacefully. 5 months later, May 28th, FBI shows up on his door, arrests him, take him to jail. Now, that's how this government and Biden's government is working. So, people need to beware. That's how it's going to go.
And I think because a lot of people know that, they are afraid to protest. They're afraid to get out there because they're afraid that our government would lock them up as well.
Right. Well, you know what? We had the strongest man in Donald Trump that I can imagine.
Yeah.
A great, great president. And they tried to take him down, and they kneecapped him continually throughout his presidency. They had conspiracies against him, all of which was completely false. The dossier that was put up by Christopher Steele, paid for by the DNC, and it was used to get the FISA warrants against people in his campaign. They spied on him, all unconstitutional, all violation of federal law. Not one of them has faced any consequences whatsoever. They have their pensions, they have their paychecks, they have their retirements. If they were pushed out, they still have their retirements. But you go step up to the Capitol and you're in the vicinity of the J6 rally, and then you are suspect and you're going to be taken to jail. And then you're not going to be given any treatments as far as medical treatment, or very little of it. You're going to have little food. If you had tried to organize a Bible study, the correctional officers are going to beat you. One man is blind in his eye completely, lost the sight of his eye because of the beatings that the correctional officer gave him for trying to organize a Bible study in that Hanoi Hilton in Washington, D.C. This is the Biden administration, and people better wake up.
I have been saying to the whites for 31 years, when I realized that they were being attacked. At the time, they had the knockout game going on, so I started writing about it and talking about it. And I said to white America, y'all better stand up. Y'all better start speaking up. You better get involved. You better vote out the government that are not protecting you from the blacks. And nobody did anything. And it was, at that time, it was lightweight. It was bad, but it was lightweight. Now it's totally out of control. There is a so-called black professor. She's real fat from head to toe, like really fat. And
Right, I saw.
you saw that? And she said something like,
Yeah, I saw a clip about it.
so what?
I saw a clip about it. Yes, I
Yeah.
forgot what exactly. Yeah,
A woman by the name of Brittany Cooper. And she
Right.
said something like, I can't remember exactly what she said, but we got to take these white MFers out. Something like that.
right, right,
And there's no
Right.
protest to get her out of the school. They let her stay there. If a white person had said that about any black person, they would be out of the university right now. But I don't hear white people protesting that. They let her stay at the school and continue to teach
Right.
the hatred. Why are white people so weak and so quiet? And what's wrong with the whites?
Well, I don't know. You know what? You remember back at the O.J. Simpson situation? You remember that well, probably.
Yes.
And you remember that one trucker named Reginald Denny?
Yeah.
He drove up into the middle of the black crowd that was rioting in Los Angeles. They dragged him out of the truck. Those, I guess, 3 or 4 black men dragged him out of the truck. They crushed his skull with large rocks and stones and bricks, and they left him for dead there. He lived, and he had something like 38 some odd surgeries. The men that were found guilty of it, they arrested the men. They went to trial, and they were exonerated because they were caught up in a mass protest, and it was some kind of an excuse that, well, it was a mass protest, and they were really not personally responsible for doing what they did. That kind of stuff doesn't work for white people. It doesn't work for white people at all. You can't say that about the J6ers going into Washington, D.C. You can't say that about anybody. But boy, if blacks burn down a police station in Minneapolis and let it burn to the ground, the police have to back off.
Yeah.
You know what? Oh, it's mass hysteria. So we're going to excuse them. You know, in Philadelphia, they had so many of the black rioters looting the stores, cleaning the stores out of the shelves out during that last year's protests. And then they even blew up ATM machines. Well, what do they want to do? They practice now what is called restorative justice. What is restorative justice? Well, we want to get the perpetrators of the crimes and the people that were victims of the crimes, the store owners, to sit down and talk about it, and let's visit about why you did this and why you should not do that, and how it's hurt me. And it's ridiculous. It's absurd. We've lost law and order in our country, and that's exactly what's taking place.
I've been saying that South Africa was coming to America. Now it's here, where
Right.
the blacks took over the government in South Africa, and they literally destroyed the whites, and still are. They're robbing, raping, and stealing and killing them along the roadside. They defunded the police departments there, and the blacks are going into the farmlands and to the people's homes and killing them, raping them, and the wives and the girls in front of the parents.
Nelson Mandela was a part of the African National Congress too.
Yeah. So the same
Congress
exact thing are happening here. Why can't the people see that it's happening? And they're taking the land from the whites in Mommy Africa without compensation. They're starting to do the same thing here. What will it take for the people to say no more?
Well, I don't know what it's going to take. I think probably it's going to be something like Nazi Germany, really. I mean, you know, I was going to stand up and protest, but I found out I'm the only one left. And that's kind of what's going on. We have mass brainwashing going on in our nation right now.
Yeah.
People are afraid to say anything because of what we've been talking about. But you're exactly right. And I might add, regarding what took place in South Africa, that was with America Help.
Yeah.
They had a white primary government, but it was all about blacks being oppressed. And so the worst of the worst of the worst things that we can talk about in those days was apartheid. white-controlled government, blacks on the bottom. And so America got in there, changed it up with joining hands with the African National Congress, an out-and-out communist organization, changing it up. They all promised when they put the blacks in charge in South Africa that they would not take the properties, they would not confiscate it. That all was a grand lie, just as communism teaches you to do. And so now that's exactly what's happening. They're incarcerating the whites, the farmers, they're taking their properties, they're destroying homes, and that's exactly what's happening.
Yesterday and Sunday, I talked about this former KGB guy. He was worked for them for a minute, but he left them, and he came to he went to Canada, and he's been warning Americans that socialism is happening in America, and that the people need to wake up before it's too late. That we still have a chance, right? And he said that America is the last free country, and if we allow socialism or communism to take over here, there's nowhere to go. But he talked about how this has been going on for a while, the demoralization of Americans, the education system re-educating the people, and that it's been going on for a while, and the people have not seen it because they're demoralized. And the way that you control people is by demoralizing them, because you cannot control a moral person or more people, right? And I've been saying that for a while.
Yes.
And so he said that once you brainwash the people, you can show them a death camp and they won't believe that it's real. It's hard for them to believe that it's real once you demoralize them. And that seems to be happening in America. The people, they have no moral values, especially the Generation Z and the millennials. They have no moral values. They have been demoralized. And so if they are demoralized, how do we get them to see the truth if they can't see it?
Well, we can't. And unless we have some mass conversion to Christ, and what's repentance in our country, and recognizing that the problem is the heart of man, and unless we see that, then we're lost, and that's the bottom line of it. It is also of note that our founding fathers all warned us about this day, and they would tell us, you keep things local. You do not let anything go national. You don't take anything to the federal government. You keep it local because you can control it at a local level. But if you take it to the federal level, you can't control it. But from the time of Woodrow Wilson, we have been brainwashed to think that it's progressivism. No, Wilson was a socialist, and they wanted socialism. Let's call it what it is. Progressivism is socialism, and they've been pushing socialism incrementally from the time of Woodrow Wilson and a little bit before, actually, pushing it since the turn of the last century. FDR, huge socialist. But if people had paid attention what he was about when he was governor of New York, they would have known what was going on. But no, we just kind of tracked along. Well, he's gonna help the poor man. Well, you know what? And then we see country songs about FDR is going to help the poor man. FDR had no business helping the poor man. That's not FDR's job. That's our local job. But we took the welfare system, put it in Washington, D.C., and we did it even more so on steroids with Lyndon Johnson. And we've joined the United Nations, which was set up by a group of communists and communist spies in order to get us to a global government. That was the design. George Bush told us, he says, we're about to see the vision of the founders of the United Nations come to fruition. That was George Bush the senior. Well, he knew what he was talking about. That's exactly what they have. They had a global socialist government in place with the United Nations. Yeah. But we just jump in there. And so we've been going down this track for a long time, and it has demoralized the people because we have not seen what's coming.
I noticed that, and this guy talked about Christianity. He said that they take away Christianity first, and once you take that away, you destroy the men. Once you do that, then you can destroy the rest of the country by re-educating them. I want to ask this, and then I got to squeeze in a few calls. You want to take some calls?
Sure, that'd be great.
I want to ask this. I told you about this woman that said this at this college, Brittany Cooper, about taking out the white MFers, right?
Right.
Why do you think the whites are not saying anything about that?
Well, I mean, I don't know, except for the fact that there are too many that are just weak. And at this point, also, Jesse, I will say this, that there is so much happening across the country, across the board, that it's almost impossible for any group of people or one individual to keep up with all that's actually happening, because it's cascading over the dam, and the dam is broken and water's pouring through. And so it's like, you know, where do you put your attention? And what do you talk about? And where should I really put my efforts? It's very difficult to do when all this is happening all across the board.
Amazing.
So that's part of it as well.
And I noticed too that the blacks are used to usher in socialism. Like over in South Africa, it's the blacks who are destroying the country over there. Over here, it's the blacks who are being used, and there are liberal whites too who are doing it, but the blacks are being used to usher in socialism, division, destruction. Is that because the blacks have been taken care of too? They have no values. The government is their daddy. They just have no values. They don't care.
I think a lot of them are exactly right there. That the value system is not what ours is. It's not Christianity.
Yeah.
And they were brought up that way in South Africa, and that's exactly the way most of them are in the inner cities are being brought up here in America. They're very little, and the churches too. The churches too themselves are participatory in socialistic nonsense. They're not teaching the gospel of Christ. They think that a welfare system is somehow lining up with biblical values, and it has nothing to do with the Bible. But nevertheless, the welfare system is what a lot of the churches are teaching.
I have I think I saw a super chat. Chris, are you able to see James' notes when he sent them about the super chat things?
Yeah.
Did you know he just sent me one? There's a super chat question for Bill.
Yes.
Why are you not reminding me of anything? You didn't remind me about Tuesday being over, and you didn't remind me about this. Is that a question, a super chat question for Bill?
There is one, yes.
Let's get to that.
Okay. The question from Joanna Moe is, why is Texas not mobilizing the state army for the border? Isn't that a uniquely American feature of states to protect their states from or protect their state's freedom, regardless of federal actions? It's hard to watch helplessly how people are not getting the severity of the situation.
I think that's a great question, and that actually puts his finger right in the sore, and that is the Republican leadership that we have across the country and even in the state of Texas is not strong enough to do what they must do. I don't know that they are seeing the issue for what it is, and that is it is a war against the state of Texas. It's a war against America that the Biden administration is waging. And therefore, the idea of going to court and putting National Guards on the troops simply to usher in the illegals that Abbott is doing and just to kind of watch it and monitor it is not sufficient. It is a war, and we are being invaded. And the invasion should be stopped by National Guard, and let the federal government, if they want to do something, come over here and stop us. But we don't have the strong enough leadership in Texas to do it.
Let's go to your friend, Hake's friend, and my friend, Mays from Dayton, Ohio. Remember Mays?
I do remember Mays.
Mays, you're on with Bill Lockwood.
Hello, Jesse.
Hi, Mays.
Hello, Lockwood.
Hey, Mays, how are you?
He can that again. I have a question.
What did you say, Mays? What did you say under your breath?
I was talking to someone.
Oh, you talked to someone on your end?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
But anyway, as I said, can I talk to Lockwood, Jesse, or do I have to talk to you?
No, he can hear you. Go ahead.
Since he's not representing you, he's representing himself, right? But Lockwood, the question when you was talking about Reginald Denny and what happened to the man was
Mays, can you hold on for a minute?
Sure.
Are you able to stay for another 5 or 10 minutes, Bill?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm holding my friend and your friend and the smartest white man on this side of heaven over to take some calls, and I do appreciate it. He didn't know I was going to hold him over. I think he has to go to work. Do you have to go to work, Bill?
I do. That's okay, though. Yeah, I'm on the way to work in a few minutes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I won't keep you. I want you to finish
that's okay.
up. I want you to finish up with Maze, and then I want you to
Sure.
tell the folks how to get your website. Ride. You still ride the Bible, right? I mean, ride the horse with the Bible.
I do. I haven't recorded one in a couple months. I need to record some more. I've had some issues with those who are recording and getting it done. But at any rate, we'll get some more of those up here pretty soon.
Okay. I want to go back to Maze out of Dayton, Ohio. Maze, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay, you're on with Bill Lockwood.
Yeah, Bill was hanging on Reginald Denny this morning. I was listening to him discussing him. But the man that saved Reginald Denny's life, do you think he was a great person to do that?
Which person?
She said the
The
man
person
that
that
saved Reggie Denny's life, do you think he was a good person?
The man that saved Reginald Denny's life?
Yes.
Was he? Well, if anybody saves someone's life, I guess they're a good person. Yeah.
Okay, you want to put it like that. So what about James Byrd, the ones that killed him? What do you feel about that? The one that they drug on
The one
the
that
truck.
killed James Byrd, I think
And he had nobody to help
I
save
think
his
this-
life. You don't remember? You remember
think
Ricky
it-
Short.
Hold
Excuse me?
I
on,
remember
man.
James Byrd.
Hold on. Let him. You need to speak up to you're on your
Oh, you can't
Obama
hear me?
phone. Yeah, you're not clear. First of
I
all,
was on.
Bill, do you know who? I don't know who James Byrd is. Who is that?
Yeah, I'm ready to
He was a
take
black
you
man.
on.
Hold on,
Right behind
Maze.
the truck.
Hold on, mate. I'm gonna let
Yeah,
you
he was a
go,
black
Maze,
man
if
that-
you don't be quiet. Let Bill talk. Go ahead, Bill.
He was a black man that was dragged behind a truck in East Texas, I believe. I believe that's and killed. Yeah, I believe that they should have been prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I have no qualms about that. I mean, killing a person is killing a person. I think that ought to have been done.
Okay. So having and harming a person, regardless of what color they are, should be
Yes,
talked
ma'am.
about, since you're supposed to be whatever your church or whatever. But when you go to your church, I want you to, you don't live by yourself. Are you robbing God of his law? And tell me which one you're robbing him of. That should be your biblical question, Jesse.
What
Hello?
was that now? I didn't quite understand. I didn't understand the
Maze,
question.
there's something wrong with your phone. You're not clear.
No, there's nothing wrong with
And
my
you-
phone. You can hear me. I
and
asked
you-
him, was he robbing God of his law? When you do stuff like you're doing.
She said, when you go to church, are you robbing God of his law?
No, I say everyday life.
In my everyday life, am I robbing God?
Of his law.
Well, you know, Malachi uses
I'm
that
not talking
phrase.
about Malachi.
with-
I'm talking about the law he left on this earth for
Do you
man
know
to
what-
follow.
Anybody?
Well, you know what?
She keeps interrupting.
Huh?
Well, robbing
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, robbing God is a phrase that comes out of Malachi chapter 3 and involves not giving to God what we should give, and he's referring to monies that we give in contributions. And so we can rob God by not doing what we ought to do as far as giving
I'm not
is
talking
concerned.
about
That's
that law,
true.
Robin. I'm talking about his law. His law that he left, his law that he left on this land.
What
For
law?
everybody to follow his commandments. That's what I call his law. Not money. His laws that he left.
Okay,
Are
well,
you
we
rubbing
should
him
not
on his
rob
law
God.
every
No.
day?
We should
As a
not rob
Caucasian
God.
man?
No.
I'm sorry,
No, we should
Bill.
not rob God.
Bill, I'm sorry. Maze must be drunk this morning because she made no sense at all. And then she's interrupted every time she asks a question.
Well, I'm sorry I was not able to give a clearer answer. I wasn't quite sure about that. But no, we should not rob God on anything regarding what God's law is or anything. We should not neglect it at all.
You rob him every day because when you sit here and talk about Reginald and you didn't talk about Bird, same thing happened. Somebody was harming both of them. One got help and the other one didn't. You're robbing him of his law. Bearing false witness.
How so? Well, how did that rob God?
That's a good one. So somebody else could call.
Bill, Maze, Bill want to know
What?
how did that rob God?
I said his law. What is God's law? His 10 Commandments.
This must
Because
be a
y'all try to act
black.
like ill and don't know what it is.
This must be a
He
black
left
thing,
his law
Bill.
here. He didn't leave it in the book. He left it on a pillar or stone. So if y'all follow his
Yeah,
commandments, y'all will be following his law, but you don't. Love thy neighbor as thyself, which you don't do.
All right, where the
But you
white
always
men
want to
that
find out
dragged
what.
I put her on hold. Go ahead, Bill.
were the white men that dragged and to death James Byrd, were they prosecuted? Yes. Were the black men that beat Reginald Denny almost to death prosecuted? No. That's why I mentioned the Reginald Denny story, because we're talking about the fact that blacks are infrequently allowed to get by with so much more than white people are. Same thing regarding the Black Lives Matter last year. Black Lives Matter riots and Antifa riots, inclusive of whites, they burned down federal buildings, police stations, murdered people. There were over 20 people that died from those riots. Cities were burning, and yet there was hardly any prosecution whatsoever. And those that were put in jail were released because of our famous vice president. But if you walk into the Capitol building on a J6 day, and you walk into the Capitol building, not breaking doors, and then you go home after taking pictures and walk around, and the Capitol Police allow you to come in, you go home, and 5 months later, the FBI shows up on your doorstep. Everybody can see that there's completely different standards here. And the standards are, if you are a conservative, if you're a white conservative, then you're going to have a lot of problems. If you are a black radical, then they're going to let you get by with whatever you want to get by with. And that's what's going on in the streets.
Maze.
Yes.
Hate
See,
said.
that's what I'm saying.
Maze.
She's robbing God.
Maze. Listen, Maze.
What? What, Jason?
Hate said Maze thinks she's God.
I don't think I'm God. I never have been God. You thinking he's a great white hope. So what is it? If he's a great white hope to you,
and Maze, let me tell you why he said that.
They are not images to me.
Maze.
Nobody is. I don't look at images and statues and all of that stuff and make them my God.
Maze, he said.
What?
And Reese, he said that. Maze, shut up. You about to make me curse.
Go ahead and curse then. That's what you want to do. Go ahead.
I want to curse.
Stopping you nothing.
Shut up.
Yeah, laugh about it. They don't even understand that.
You almost about to make me cuss.
Because we understand each other.
Maze, listen. Hate said that if you talk about blacks, you have to say whites do the same thing.
I am
just
talking
as,
to a Caucasian man.
Just
I'm
as
not talking
blacks just as bad as the blacks. So if somebody says something what the blacks are doing, you as being God, you think they need to say that white people are doing it too. They
are.
Something wrong with you, Mace.
If you're going to ignore what you're doing and going to sit up and talk about black people all day like they're your problem, something wrong with you.
The blacks are the problem.
What?
Blacks are the problem.
To you they are, not to me.
Right, because you black.
And then if you want to hear Lockwood sit up and talk about Reginald Denny to make angry people angry or something, but he won't talk about the man that saves him. I mean, something wrong with the whole picture.
It is.
The man that saved.
Something wrong with your picture.
And then you want to put him down, but the other three that killed the man, and nobody was there to save him. Where was Lockwood? He was not marching to try to benefit that man. He's on here with this rhetoric, and that's why I asked him, is he following God's law? And he was talking about money. I'm not talking about tithe, I'm talking about his law that he left on this earth.
But God didn't make that law. You made that law.
No, I didn't. God made him. He gave you 10 commandments.
No, but about you got to point out both sides.
Honor your mother and your father, and all of those different things. But you won't talk about it because it's like a vampire with a cross. Y'all just like vampires. Because when somebody pull the law to you, it's like you melt, turn red, and do all kinds of things. You can't turn red.
But God never said you have to point out white people.
Yeah, your hair just stand up on your chin because you don't have any on your head.
By me.
But have a good one, Jesse. But as I say, we'll follow the law that God left, and you won't have nobody's pulpit trying to preach the gospel of nothing because you don't have it. Have a good day.
Sometimes I wonder if she's calling me from an insane asylum or something.
Yeah, that was something. Yeah, she said you a vampire would need to cross or something.
Oh God! So Bill, tell the folks how to get to your website and all the other things you want them to be aware of.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Jesse. It's American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. The website is the .com address. American Liberty with BillLockwood.com. And the radio show is American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. It's on YouTube. It's a YouTube channel, and you can find it there, as well as Writing for the Bible brand. It's a short Bible lesson, and that will be also on YouTube. So those are the two YouTube channels, the website, and the radio shows out of Wichita Falls, and it's in Abilene and Lubbock as well.
Right on. Well, thank you so much, Bill, for coming and staying over for us. I realize you got to go to work, but I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Love you, Jesse.
Yes, sir. Same here, Bill. Thank you. God bless you.
All right. You too. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Amazing. We got to stand up for Bill is right. We are at war. We are at war. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.